Well, good evening, my friends. It's Carpo, and I'm back with another video. As I was inside doing the dishes, I started thinking about why we care, and often have many of my, I don't know, the thoughts I want to share while I'm doing tasks, and then by the time I'm finished, it's hard to remember what I exactly wanted to say. But these are ideas I've considered for many years, but sometimes I come up with kind of a new way of putting it, I guess, in my own mind, and that's the difficult thing. Anyhow, I was thinking about altruism and caring about others, and the thought that passed into my head is, you have to stop giving a shit before you can start caring. And I kind of thought that over in my mind, and I realized that it made sense to me. It kind of goes back to a video I made a while back about the art of not giving a fuck. And where I was saying it's not about stopping caring. It's rather about just letting go of the BS so you can start caring. So let me give you an example of what I mean. Why do you help people? Why do you help friends and family when they need it? Think about it for a minute. Think, well, because I love them, right? Or because I would expect them to help me, or because it's the right thing to do. Now that's the one I was thinking about. It's the right thing to do. I think, but according to who? In other words, why should I go out of my way to help someone just because I know them? Now, I can say that because I'm the kind of person that wants to help people. Even though I don't always go out of my way to help others, sometimes it's because I have chosen and learned how to set my boundaries, so I don't feel like I'm being depleted of my energy by other people, because I've met a lot of users in my life who will just suck you dry of all your energy, and they will just keep using you until they move on, and so I've built up my, I guess, a little bit of a resistance to that. So when somebody says, hey, could I stay over, or we should do this or meet up, I'll say straight up, I'm busy, or I'm not available, or no, I straight up can't do this or won't do this. And people understand, especially if they're friends and family. What I'm getting at is some people are the people pleaser types who will do anything because they're afraid of being looked at in a negative light. And honestly, you're doing yourself a severe injustice if you don't give yourself space, if you don't set your boundaries. But more importantly, what I've noticed is the people who do care about others and want to help other people tend to set boundaries and be like, hey, I'm not going to put up with this shit. Some of the most caring people I know and that I've met and talked to seem to have the rough exterior when you really confront them about something. Whereas the people who brag about how they love to help people all the time, or I'm always doing favors for people, or I'm always doing, it's almost used as a crutch. But some people use that as a reason because they don't want to do it. In other words, if it is something you just naturally want to do, you're not going to brag about it. It's like people who brag about giving to charity. Oh yeah, I gave this much to charity. Oh, good for you. So anyhow, the art of not giving a fuck means you let go of all the preconceived notions of what you think about people and what you think they think about you, and and start helping people based on what you feel is right. But there is no such thing as right and wrong when it comes to some of the more obscure, I guess, value judgments or value decisions. And I guess I could use the trolley problem as an example. And if you haven't heard of that one, I guess I should lay it out. It's a problem. It's a moral dilemma. Is what it is. And you have a train going down a track, and it's heading towards one person who's tied to the tracks, and it's going to run them over. You're too far away to save the person. Don't try to trick yourself, like get around the problem. There's a person who's going to get hit by a train on the tracks, there's train tracks with 5 people on the tracks, and you are standing next to a handle where you can divert that train to a different set of tracks, except for there's one person tied to that track. Do you pull the lever? And of course, if you don't touch it, you're letting fate do its thing. But if you do pull it, you're killing one person to save 5. But you're still killing one person. Therefore, you're a murderer. You are stuck in this dilemma of, is it utilitarian? And the more of these types of problems we look at, the more we realize that, nihilism, for example, is not what people were told. The idea that Nietzsche was some kind of hide in his closet and hate the world, that big mustache can lead you astray, and as far as the meaning behind it. But some of the most amazing people and their ideas have been taken out of context because people are so afraid of looking within. They're afraid of looking at the possibility that their values may be just based on what they were taught. And there's that big question of what sort of moral values would we have if we were taught nothing? If our parents had never told us a thing, if we were raised feral, let's say, I guess it would depend on your circumstance. If you were a feral group of human beings that were raised without any language, without any communication with the outside world, you might learn how to survive, but you might end up, let's just say that humans pass down knowledge. Without that knowledge, we would die. And a group of people who, let's say, were living like that, what kind of values would they develop over time? I mean, they would learn that if you steal someone else's food, they will come and hit you over the head with a rock, right? You would learn that if you share, then other people will share with you. So how the group would respond in their values would be based on the circumstances of their environment. In other words, if their food was plentiful, people would always have their serotonin flowing and they would feel great and they'd want to share, most likely. But if food was scarce and times were tough, there would be brutal competition. And we can see this through history, all through the history of mankind, all the way back into ancient history, which the structure of some of these ancient civilizations was just amazing. I mean, cities of 1 million people aren't something that we've really thought about, from way centuries past, like in South America, or even tens of thousands of people. But these civilizations were able to survive and thrive, and the reason why is because they had values. They learned to cooperate. Doesn't mean they were peaceful all the time, but anyhow, letting go of your value judgments on what we think is, I guess, right and wrong isn't a matter of. There's two ways people take that. One way is that, a person just wants to be able to eliminate their morals so they can go out and rape and murder and pillage and steal. In fact, I've talked to Christians who really believe that if an atheist, for example, doesn't have a religion, then the natural tendency is for humans to rape and pillage and steal and murder. And I think I've said, how can you really think this? Humans had to cooperate long before we had religions. If we were just brutally killing each other, then we never would have survived. And if you look at the animal kingdom, altruism within the animal kingdom, yes, animals have their territories, but they also welcome in outsiders sometimes, if there's enough food, and if there's enough territory and enough resources, and they will even help out each other in the symbiotic relationships between different animals, and helping, raise other animals young within groups. I mean, there are these inherent values, I guess. I wouldn't say values, but behaviors in which the animal kingdom is given. And humans are no different. The question is, how do we find what those real, true values are? In other words, how do we find our life purpose and path and what humans are supposed to be doing? And we've done a pretty good job of trying to make up reasons of why we think, but I'm not going to get into the religious aspect. I'm fascinated with comparative religion, with all different philosophers and philosophies, as well as coming up with my own ideas about life. And I've delved pretty deeply into the occult. And when people hear that, they think, oh, occult, it's some kind of satanic witchcraft thing. I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with that. The mystery schools were just, I don't know, these things are really taken out of context these days, and there's this big mysterious air put around them. The truth is they were underground and they were hidden because they were persecuted by the religious majority. And anybody who studied any type of ancient or alternate wisdom about, say, even praying to, a different god, or just simple nature worship, or no worship whatsoever, these people were persecuted by the church, burned at the stake, poisoned, killed, villages burned. I mean, the Library of Alexandria, which was the greatest collection of literature ever at that time in the world, and probably since, about ancient history, was burned to the ground by a Christian tyrant who convinced the people that the library was evil and only the Word of God was what mattered. And this is the original book burning, if you will. Definitely not the first or the last, but this is, how they found the scripts in Nag Hammadi, which were, the Dead Sea Scrolls back in, I believe, the 20s, but they were found in clay pots up in a cave in the middle of nowhere, stored and hidden during the time when all of those were being burned. And man was deciding what God to believe and what was in the book. And the reason I got into religion on this video here is because it was just a natural, when I'm just speaking off the top of my head, it's just a natural segue. It's something that happens when you start talking about values, helping others, and you just want to say, religion does not have a monopoly on values, or truth, or reality. And I think that the sooner we figure that out, the easier it might be for us to get along. And I'd like to see a positive future, but by even saying that, it's coming out of my own values, my own brain. And that's what I mean about eliminating the idea of right and wrong. Even in my country, we have two political sides. At least that's the illusion that's put out there. And people are constantly fighting about who's right and who's wrong and who's evil and who's a killer and a murderer. We're all just people. The idea that a political party sets your values completely, is, well, maybe for some people it does, but really it's just we reflect with others who we agree with to an extent. Doesn't mean we always have the right ideas about things, but no group of people has the right to tell everyone else that they're wrong. Of course, we can tell a small group of people they're wrong, there's always going to be those small fringe groups, terrorist groups, let's say. You could say, well, these people are wrong. They're evil, they're tyrants. And you start breaking it down and you ask yourself, well, why are they doing this? Why would anyone in their right mind decide to wear a suicide vest and blow themselves up? It's desperation. It's promises. Promises of, being loved by God, and that your family will be taken care of, and that you're fighting this tyrant, this country in which you see their Air Force, and their drones constantly dropping bombs on your country. You're damn right you'd be wearing a vest. When people get desperate, they do anything. And so, I guess my point there is that it's really easy for us to judge others because of the culture they're in, the clothes they wear, the color of their skin, what type of a turban they wear. It's pretty pathetic when you really break it down and realize that we're all here together, and if some of us fail, we all fail. And I don't mean that there won't be some groups that just won't make it. What I mean is that the world has gotten a lot smaller, and we have to look at values as something that I guess we should respect the integrity of someone's values. If someone values, say, their conservative side and they want to preserve things the way they've been, you can't just say, oh, well, you're an idiot, you need to learn how to change with the times. And just like that person who's a conservative shouldn't be looking and saying, well, you're just a dumb liberal, you should just be happy with your country or move out. Both people are morons. The stupid things people say to one another. It's just frustrated anger. But when you really break it down and talk to one another face to face, that can change. It really can change. And I think that talking to people is a super important thing. It's just face to face, not just online and bullshit arguments. I'd really like to do more interviewing with people and get their kind of life stories. I'm leaving on Sunday morning for Montana, and I was thinking about going to Libby, Montana to do some gold panning down south of there. And as I was looking up some of the spots, I found out that Libby, Montana is considered the most polluted city in the country from asbestos because of the mine there. And of course it was covered up and hidden, and they tried to obscure it. So it's not the largest pollution, in the country. What it is per capita, or compared to the amount of people in the city. I think that there was 2,600 people in the city, and something like 50 have died, and 1,000, almost half of the people there have, lung problems. Everyone from age 30, even down to the age of 15 years old, mostly older people. They worked in the mine, and then they would throw that dirt down on the baseball field, and a lot of the kids would play on the baseball field. But it's not a matter of the pollution itself, but the way we obscure it and hide it. But anyhow, I don't want to get off track here. When I realized that, I really wanted to go down there and take some time to interview some of the people in the town. Small town with just a couple thousand people, you know. The stories are out there, but since I guess they've remediated the problem, but of course there are still people dying, and I don't know, it's those stories that really move me when I hear about people's hardships and whatnot. So those are I guess the values that are important to me, is seeing that people aren't treated like shit and abused. I mean, people are going to get taken advantage of, people are going to get hurt, that's life, but there's no reason it has to be, there has to be any obscuring of what's really going on. To me, that's one of the values that I value, is truth and honesty, I should say. Honesty to the best of our ability with ourselves and with others. And maybe that's just a pipe dream that we could all be honest, but like I have young kids, and my son was just talking about cheating earlier, or how, I cheated this, and I tell them every time I hear that word cheat, look them in the eye and I say, do not be a cheater, please. I was like, the one thing I will never do is cheat. And I don't cheat. And I don't cheat in games. I don't cheat people. I would never feel right cheating. You don't win from cheating. But I'm not a competitive person in that way. Don't believe me, I love a good competition. I love to win, just like anyone else. But if I can't win the right way, I'm not going to do it. And that's probably why I fail as a businessman so much. It's because, I don't want to play the game and just the whole business game and jumping through all the hoops. I love the simple life. I really wish that it could be simple for all of us, because it's just a different feeling when you don't have a whole, cornucopia of obligations that you've put on yourself. Not just in daily life obligations, but some of these are, some of the things that we get ourselves into, like $40,000 cars that we have to make payments on every month, and then we lose our job. And believe me, I've never done that one, but I've never spent more than a few grand on a car. So but it's about minimizing kind of the I don't know, let me just say it this way: the less we stress about our daily lives, the less we tend to make value judgments on others, the less we tend to want to be greedy in order to hold on to what we have, the more we're willing to actually help people, because we know what it feels like to be there. And when you're less stressed about life in general, you're more likely to treat people with respect, and then you don't get into elitism and classism and start thinking, oh look, it's just poor white trash, I'm not like that person. And so anyway, I'm rambling, but that's what I do best, and that's what I've been doing for years. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Just in time for the sirens. I'll close this out with that note. Be well, my friends. Let me know what you think about values and value judgments and morals, and it's always great to read your comments. Peace out.